Hello. I got to start somewhere, haven't I? And so where better than a forehead transition from darkness into light? Well, anyway, that is kind of the theme of my short video now. I did forget to do my hair. So the whole thing is going to be an outtake, but let's just leave it in for now because we all have to start somewhere. And what is it that I do? Because I've just started my own company called Daisy Bowman Sound and Ayurveda. Both of those things, in a way, kind of seem a little bit esoteric or completely unknown or irrelevant to people. And so I thought I would start to attempt to explain it. But it's not that easy unless I go just to my own experience. I first wanted to talk about sound, because sound to me it encompasses everything from music to meditation, to the thoughts in our heads, to the dialogues that we have with ourselves within. And if I just talk about myself, just within those realms that I just spoke about, all of those aspects of sound in my life have helped me feel much, much better in my body-mind. My first experience of realizing this, I think, was probably when I was a young child, and whenever I would get angry, I would go and play on the piano. And I did play the piano, but I would just go and improvise, and it would start off really, really angry, and then eventually I'd get into it, get in the flow. And now I looked into sound much more, I realized the significance of this experience back then, especially as later on when I started doctoring. And I felt, life became so grey. Everything in my perception felt grey and dull and lacking luster and vibrancy, all of the words you would associate with colour and life, basically. I remember being kind of pointed to a yoga studio. You'll like this, and I went. And I'm not going to talk about yoga so much, but I went on a yoga retreat, and I had no idea really what to expect. But one of the experiences there was we were sitting around a fire, and my yoga teacher asked me if I could play the guitar, and he gave me some chords, and then and he asked me to play this, and we were singing mantras, and it just hit me that, like, wow, you can just sit and sing. I mean, and accompanying that experience was also hearing the chant of the Gayatri mantra. And at the time, I had no idea what this meant at all. But the sounds touched me so deep. I felt like it woke something up in me. And perhaps the ripples of that first experience are still opening in me. I don't know, it was just so profound. It was the sounds, it wasn't even a musical, it was the Vedic style of chanting. And so this was just, these kind of early encounters with sound. Well, they're not that early, about 12 years ago. Maybe I'll find a picture and stick it on top of this. But yes, and then so I started getting back into music and playing something called Kirtan, if you haven't heard of it already, which is basically melodies set to mantras and sung with a group, and you all go into this very easy state of meditation because you're all singing and chanting the same very simple words mostly, and it's soothing because it's a song, and it's also improvised, so everybody feels they're kind of in a creative flow at the same time. And through this sound, it brings us back to a space of silence. Well, it definitely did for me anyway, and I just remember this vibrant space first opening up after all the singing, and you can actually fall back into a space of meditation. And that's when I started to actually go into sound-based meditations. I've been fortunate to have many wonderful teachers and mentors on the path, and one of these teachers, she taught me how to work with the sound of Om and Bija mantras, very simple primordial sounds, the essence of all of creation, basically, and how that we can chant them. And these sounds can tune the whole mind and body. And a few years ago, I had this experience where, it wasn't this cosmic experience, it was more this very everyday experience where I felt, oh my goodness, all the emotions that I felt for so many years, throwing me about on the waves, highs and lows and drama and this, suddenly the importance of them and the way that they could affect me just dropped away. And I could sit with myself in silence. It was like this possibility opened up there once or twice a day that I could just sit, chant Om, and then sit in the silent space that remained, not wait for a kirtan event or wait for a group event or anything like that. No, I was empowered to tune my own mind and body and frequency back to the essential of this silent conscious space from which everything has emerged. And it's been transformational, and it's given me really this great base for going deeper with my own inner work and introspection without getting lost in there, because you start to recognize that sound waves are everything, including all emotions, all thoughts. So every experience that comes along and triggers things, it's not even a thinking, oh, it's a wave. It's like you feel it. You start to work with this as a medium, and so you know it in a different way, and you know what to just let go of. You know what has to be experienced fully, and you let these things subside, and it becomes a very lived meditation that's integrated in the whole life. So, and the last aspect, music itself, which I wanted to really talk about, because for me this is really connected with rediscovering creative force and providing myself with containers that I let myself create, or I even have to push myself to create sometimes, because after conditioning or whatever it is, we kind of start to hold back. And this is what I experienced in myself, and what I am realizing now is that going back to this full color, technicolor experience, that nothing gives me more joy in activity than creating something out of nothing. Tuning into what's there, and even though going through all the phases of difficulty and all the phases of struggle and even boredom, you know, it's a very important feeling to feel, because out of that comes something. And for me, this is really not separate from sound at all, because it's the voice of ourselves. It's that wants to come out. Even if you're a painter, or even if you're doing any other kind of art, it's still something from within that is taking on the form of yourself through a wave form, which is sound, and coming out. And I do work with the voice, because I do feel it's very, very, it's the most intimate part of ourselves that should, well, not should, there's no shoulds about it, but when we do start to work with it, and I work with what I feel to be the true voice. It's not a professional voice. The counter to that is, I guess, if you've ever experienced yourself in a party or like in a social situation and you hear yourself talking and you think, well, that's not me. This is like the false voice, and it's the masks that we put on, and it changes our voice. Or if we are anxious or angry, it's almost like a different force has taken over, or a different crystallization has come on top of our natural selves, like a layer, and the voice doesn't come out. It doesn't feel like it really belongs to us. And so this experience of coming back to just one version of myself, which I can be different in different spaces, but I return again and again just to who I am, which is just me. And this is what it feels like your natural self, and this is what I also wish for everybody. So hence my sound offerings will always encompass this full spectrum of from the most meditative, simple sounds to the fullest, most complex possibilities of creativity, of your own individual expression, and everything in between, the mantras that help to orient us, and the music that we listen to that brings color and joy and feeling into our lives. And yeah, and I also mentioned this inner dialogue, which again, this is the way that anybody can be a sound healer for themselves. I used to be so hard on myself, so self-critical, and of course we all have, or many of us have this tendency, but there was a point where I decided this was no longer going to work anymore, and I actively spoke to myself in a very different way and have cultivated that in order to go beyond those things. Because if you're constantly in a kind of negative dialogue within your own mind, it's very difficult to go beyond it, because you're just kind of trapped up in the own drama of your own self-criticism. Whereas if you create this peaceful atmosphere and loving space between all the parts of yourself, they all just fall back into the one anyway. That's how it's kind of been for me, mostly. So yes, so this is my little introduction to sound, and I will also try to speak a little bit about Ayurveda as well. But I hope that you've also picked up why I particularly like to work with cultivating a healthy mind, mental wellness, mental well-being, kind of avoiding the term mental health because it's taken on its own meaning. It denotes also illness in itself. And I feel like we all can improve on a daily basis the general state of our mental well-being, especially as we are continually bombarded with so much information, digital, So anyway, this will probably go into my next part 2, which is about Ayurveda and how this has helped me, which is why I am a practitioner and why I offer it. Okay, enough for now. Shall we go through the forehead detransition? See you.